Welcome to episode 8 of the BAMcast. I'm your host, Baker Shields, and it is my goal to provide a platform where you can learn, grow, and evolve by any means necessary. This one is going to be an absolute treat. I know I speak highly of all my episodes, but this one was amazing. I think you guys are going to love it. We've got Jared Hamilton on the podcast, and in this episode, expect to learn about the inner game, his specialty in that area of dieting and exercise and weight loss and fat loss. The inner child, we talk about therapy. I even tear up at one point, and you guys might even get to see me cry in this episode. But it was so packed full of so many insightful thoughts from Jared and just a great conversation catching up with a friend. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Remember, the only way that the show is going to grow is if you share it with a friend. So if you've got a timestamp or as something comes up for you inside of this episode, which I am sure it will, if you just listen, please share it with a friend. Please share the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think as well. Without further ado, let's hop right in and talk to Jared. All right, man. So I just cut you off mid-sentence so we can get into this, but you just switched therapists today. Jared Hamilton, tell me about that.
Dude, I'm telling you. So I've been. So I don't even know if you know this or not, but so I've been in therapy or some semblance of therapy, like whatever frequency. Like started off with.
You told me that you and Shelby have been in couples therapy, and you highly recommend that. Like even with no problems since the beginning, pretty much.
Yeah, dog. It's why we don't have problems.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest fan of that. I mean, here's the thing. I view therapists in the same bucket as coaches. Mm-hmm. Right? If you want your business to do better, you hire a business coach. If you want your physique to do better, you hire a fitness coach, or a nutrition coach. If you want, a buddy of mine is a big time is like working on his speaking, so he hired a speaking coach. I want my copywriting to get better, so I just recently hired a copywriting coach to literally proofread all my copy. So it's the best hack and cheat code. So when it comes to therapy, though, I used to be the stereotype. I was a meathead who thought only psychopaths and suicidal people go to therapy.
Yeah.
Well, I was wrong. And I never thought I needed therapy. I'm the happiest dude you'd ever meet. I'm always positive. I've got a great life, all the things. Well, so I started going to therapy 3 years ago or so, and it was just a mental checkup. My wife was already going to this therapist. So I'm like, well, this lady already knows half about me because my wife goes to her and just learning about.
She's hearing all the bad things about me.
Oh, she's hearing all the stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do a session with this lady. Cause I'm like, I just want to make sure my headspace is good. I have a lot of stress. I have a lot of responsibilities, and I know the more successful I become, all things scale, which means the problems scale as well. We're just training for different problems. So I went there and I was just talking to her, and first therapy session, bawled like a baby. She hit something, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that was there. Interesting. And that started my journey in therapy. I've been in therapy for the next 3 years. And then, like a lot of coaches, one coach usually isn't meant to be with you forever. It's, one chapter closes and things like that. Well, that therapist did great. I got a lot out of it, and it changed everything for me. Well, today, at the time of recording this, I started my first session with a brand new therapist. Whew. First of all, I have cried about 7 times today, just for the record.
Nice.
And here's the thing, for those that don't understand, like I've always, I grew up in a household that like, you're a fucking bitch if you cry. Like you are you would have thought like I grew up in like a ex-military house or something. Yeah. Well, the thing is the psychology behind healing and the psychology behind transforming your emotional and mental self is the old self has to be purged, as kind of airy-fairy as that sounds, which means, and this is why people go to like Tony Robbins events or work in therapy. There's usually issues in the septic systems. Like I was recently at a Kyle Cease event, and kind of Tony Robbins kind of guy, and everyone's having all these breakthroughs. Literally he says at every event, the septic system gets all fucked up because everyone releases all these things, and everyone's in the bathroom because everyone's like shitting like a motherfucker because
I would not have thought that.
Well, bro, the body holds, there's so many books on the body keeps score, and but we hold trauma in our body in these things. Well, for most people, you either go shit your brains out, or what most people do is they cry. The reason though is because, these things, these old identities, the trauma, whatever it may be, it has to leave you, right? When you have breakthroughs, it has to leave you. And the only way it can go is through your eyes. They've even done studies on this, bro, where like someone has a healing set, like a therapeutic session, they cry, they literally take the tears, throw them under a microscope. And it's not only tears, it's stress hormones. Literally, they will do a microscopic analysis of the tears, and it's not just like salty tears. There
Wow.
are stress hormones, which means your body is quite literally purging this thing. So I did switch therapists today, and bro, I'm telling you, this lady, I was telling you, she's an assassin.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for and I told her this today, in a therapist is I want more of a coach. My last therapist was great, but there's styles of therapy. My last therapist was very much did mostly talk therapy. Not a whole lot of like, do this, stop doing this, you're doing this, end this, we're going to do this. It was more of like just getting me to talk through things, which is great. It's where a lot of people start. I almost want more of a coach. I want someone to go, you're doing it again. Stop being codependent. Nope. That's you invalidating again. That's you suppressing. That's you repressing. We're going to do this instead. Stop, sit with that, breathe. That's what I want. I want a coach of a therapist.
More kind of like hands-on, or I don't want to say aggressive with a therapist, but more kind of like aggressive in attacking your issues, you're saying?
Yeah, I want aggressive. I actually thought about going to a male coach or a male therapist because I want a little more aggressive. The cool thing with this lady is she's a beautiful balance of feminine and masculine energy. Her energy of just holding space is incredible, but with all the confidence in the world, she's like, oh, hang on, back up. Tell me that again. What do you feel right now? What's coming up for you? Sit with that. Like it's intense. And,
Wow.
and with her, with this therapy session, she literally, dude, like tied so many of the things that I struggle with. Like, dude, I'm talking about stuff from my childhood. She found this one commonality that I never thought about because I thought this one thing was my issue. And she goes, well, what's that make you feel like? Cool. Underneath that, what's that? And I told her, she's like, awesome. Now, what's that mean though? And I told her, and she goes, that's it. And then I told her about this other thing, like in how things in like business. And then she goes, and she drew the parallel. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then to my family dynamic. And she's like, she literally drew this parallel. And I go, everything from my biggest fears to my biggest achievements to relationship dynamics in everything came from this one thing. And I'm like,
wow.
And she got this from 50 minutes.
Yeah.
First time meeting me. And I'm like, this is just fascinating. And this is why I think everyone should go to therapy. If you have goals of any sort, they're probably rooted in some bullshit. This all started from the one question. She goes, what's your biggest achievement? And it all started from that. And I was like, wow. Like, and actually what's funny is normally I can talk about my biggest achievement without getting emotional, but for some reason today I couldn't. But then she peeled that onion back and back and back and back and back and back, and then found this one thing. And it was actually the inverse of what the thing was. And it's just fucking crazy, bro.
That's insane. So where do you, I mean, I've considered therapy a lot of times, and it's just like you said, your problems just grow as you grow. Right. And one of the things that, and Mike and I have talked about this, I think we even mentioned it on the episode that I did with him, was this is like 2023, since we started AR basically like January 12th or 15th or something like that of this year. So like this full year has been starting and scaling this company that's, it's grown massively, and it's the biggest company that I've ever been a part of, and so it's, especially from an ownership perspective. So it's like the problems that come up, the stressors, the hours, like everything.
Bro, I messaged you at 11 o'clock at night as like a client. Like,
yeah. I mean, we work together with AR. So it's like, but like the things that you, like you said, like as you're growing, the problems are growing too. So I've thought a lot this year specifically about therapy. So how did you go about finding your therapist and the first one that you found, other than, was it just like Shelby's using her, I should use her too? Or I know there's resources out there like BetterHelp.
Yeah. So so for me, I literally, my wife was already in therapy, so I'm just like, I guess I'll start there, and I just hit a home run. Like I was like,
Gotcha.
cool, because sometimes people have to try out different therapists. It's just some people aren't the right fit, whatever. Now, generally speaking, if people ask me all the time, like, well, where do I start? I don't have a therapist. Find someone, like if you have insurance that has therapy as part of it, look in your network. And then just like, there's literally like an ad. It's like, if I Google Indianapolis, where I'm from, Indianapolis therapists, it's literally going to give me a breakdown. And I go, well, do I want male or female? Okay. Then I'll pick a gender. Or if I don't care, I'll literally read through like what their specialization is. Because that's the thing, is a lot of them specialize. If you want someone that's really like, they come at it from a complete religious perspective, there's that. If you want someone that specializes in couple stuff, family dynamics, interfamily systems, codependency, like whatever the thing is, or whatever the area is, it can be specialized, and whatnot. But otherwise, I think it's like anything else. The biggest thing is just start. Most people spend all day, it's like with anything else, they're like trying to craft the best plan and strategy. And then a year goes by versus you're another year closer to death, but you're also another year with your problem stronger. Something that I've been saying a lot is the longer you struggle, the stronger your struggle gets. So you got to kill this thing when it's small. So,
yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to really honestly my first quote that I wrote down, because I think it's very, very relevant for you. You're really big into the inner work. I mean, your podcast, which is, I feel like I'm talking to podcast royalty right now, Dieting from the Inside Out. You've got 291 more episodes than me, right? So I'm hoping I can pick up a few things from you here. But your big thing, right, is dieting from the inside out. Like the name itself is talking about like how you can attack dieting and nutrition from a perspective of fixing yourself on the inside first, which I think aligns with therapy, aligns with the emotional side of what you're talking about. But a quote that I've got that I want you to consider is, when it comes to emotions, you need to name it to tame it. Meaning, if you can find the name of the emotion, you can address it and overcome it.
What's funny is, I think the one of the biggest things that we struggle with fixing problems is the lack of awareness. And a lot of times when we name the pattern, well, here's the thing, because there's a few layers to this. Anytime you can like point and label something, you're going to have a better time at handling it. One of the, in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the best things with developing new habits is I think in the book, he talked about the Chinese railway system came out with this point and label technique where they are not any move on the Chinese railway system. They have to like physically point and label and like explain in words like door shutting, person stopping, and it cut down on accidents by like 90% because it caused you to have massive levels of awareness, point and label the thing. I know a lot of my friends who are deep in this work, they, when it comes to their emotional side, they do name it. They'll like, let's say mine's name is Jackson or whatever, where it's like you start slipping into the old pattern where the emotions are taking the driver's seat, or you're making bad decisions based on your emotions. Like, oh no, that's Jackson. It's not Jared. Whereas at first I thought like that was weird when I heard people do that. But a lot of times it's where the problem is not you. The problem is the pattern. The problem is the emotion. The problem is the inner child. The problem is not you. The problem that most people struggle with is they think Tony Robbins, I think, says it best, is you're not the problem. If you are the problem, your brain won't let you get rid of you. Otherwise your brain's only about self-preservation. But if you're the problem, you can't get rid of it, because that means it would get rid of you, and that can't happen. But if you're like, no, Jackson's the problem, my alter ego that worries and freaks out and is a fucking lunatic, that's the problem. Yeah. So when you have a bad day, you go, it's just Jackson, where there's no guilt, there's no shame. And the most important part is it puts you outside the pattern in the program, because if you are in the program, you're on this vicious feedback loop. But when you are outside of the program, now you have power over it. Now you can go, oh, that's not me. That's the pattern. That's the emotion. That's the whatever. Because we have a tendency, something my therapist was calling me out for today, we judge our own emotions. We judge our own things from childhood, where she was like in today, if an example was, she said something was triggering that I was working through. It was like I was getting really emotional, and she goes, what's coming up for you right now? And I sat there and I was trying to figure it out. And she goes, and she literally is like, I think you're judging what you're feeling instead of just telling me what you feel. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. Instead of just being, I feel like a failure, which was mine today, was the things I was struggling with. I found out that the root was failure and being terrified of failure. And I go, and I didn't realize that's what it was, but I was like, well, is it worry? Is it doubt, or like shame? Like, what was it? And the problem that was getting in the way was judgment of it. Because the thing is, the other piece with mine today that came out was shame. I didn't know this until she said it. Shame is not like, I'm trying to think how she put it. Shame is an identity thing. It's an attack on who you are when we feel shame, versus like, oh yeah, I failed, like the video game. But when we have shame, that like penetrates your soul, right? But if I can go, oh, it's just Jackson, my alter ego, then it lets you separate it a little bit. So I'm actually a big fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's extremely well put. I mean, it's to me, it's like I always tell people, if you can just become more self-aware, right? Like if you can just learn how to look within yourself and figure out what's going on in there, like what is driving some of the decisions that you're making, what is the thought process that you just went on to get to this point that you said you didn't like, that you just got to this point, right? If you can just learn how to be a little bit more self-aware or introspective, you become so powerful, because that is what helps you to name that emotion, so then you can eventually tame it, right? So like you're talking about the alter ego thing. I was talking about figuring out like, okay, that is shame that I'm feeling, right? That is making me, binge eat because I started this out last night and I, had a couple of drinks and then I had Whataburger, and then that turned me down this entire just rabbit hole of now I'm going to start next Monday and I'm going to eat as much as I can until next Monday. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. But that is an even crazier insight of what you're talking about, is if you can actually name it, like talk about like, this is not, Baker at its core, or Baker, the version that I'm trying to become, right? Like the person that I really, really want to step into, or I feel like I am stepping into, this was the old version of him. Like that even is more powerful, I think.
So I want to piggyback on that. So I wrote this down in my notes. Like when I have a content idea, I just write it down. I have an email that I'm getting ready to send to my list that I'm going to be working on. It's who's in charge right now, or which version of you's in charge.
Yeah.
Because if it's the old self, it's the ego, is the shitty version of you, then you're going to get shitty results. But here's the other thing, or it's the most optimal version, right? You can have that conversation. But I had a friend, the podcast I interviewed her is coming out here in like a week or two. Mm-hmm. I have a friend of mine, her name's Amy. She is they have an insane business, coaching business and stuff. And Amy went through cancer and had a really nasty bout of cancer. Wow. And because of this like labeling thing, because you can do it in the negative, because here's the thing, law of polarity states everything exists in the negative and the positive on both polarities. If there's up, there's down, there's inside, there's outside, there's forward, there's backwards. Well, if there's these things for the negative, you can do it for the positive. So she actually talked about, she has an alter ego she calls Cyborg, because like a fucking machine. And it's what got her through cancer, because her cancer was disgusting. It was horrible. And when she had to like go through treatment, and while doing 75 hard, while like doing all this crazy shit, is she just tapped into Cyborg. Or another gentleman that I talk about that I've studied, when in his career, he's like, okay, I got to become this version of myself. And then you name it, you know everything about it, so you turn it on. So it can work in both ways. When I think about let me take a step back. One of the most powerful quotes that I've ever heard that's impacted my life the most is by James Allen, in one of the best books ever written, called As a Man Thinketh, written in like the 1940s. And he says, in life, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. Therefore, to get more, we have to become more. Well, that is literally labeling the version of yourself you're trying to become. So if I slip back into shitty Jared, we'll call it Jackson, I guess, is becoming the thing.
Yeah.
What's Jackson do? Jackson lets emotions take over. Jackson's a victim. Jackson, all these things. Well, then I'm going to get Jackson results. But then I go, well, who am I supposed to be? Like who, whatever you believe in, what God create you to be? What's the highest potential version of yourself? Well, we'll just call him Jared, because that's who I'm supposed to be. Well, what's that version of me do? What's the successful, fit, millionaire, high achieving, most abundant, most impactful version of me do? Well, what's that person do? Walk, talk, act, feel, respond. Well, then you align actions with that, and then it makes decision-making effortless. So you can do that on both sides of the fence,
For sure. I know you've probably shared this a bunch of times, and this was one of the most like impactful things that I got from our weekend that we spent out in Naples, Florida. And I wrote it down in my quotes list, which is where I kind of keep like all my hardest hitters that I've ever heard. And I wrote down the idea of the Coma Letter.
I made it to the hard hitter list.
Let's go, bro. You did big time. And so I would love it. I don't know if I know it's kind of like a lot of the things that you do with your own clients, but I'd love it if you'd share that concept here. Cause I really think that concept has the potential to change the way people perceive themselves.
Yeah, the Coma Letter is gangster, bro. So the Coma Letter it's something that I thought about, because when it comes to, It's this concept that I came up with where when we coach, for those listening, for context, and this doesn't matter what you're going after, fitness, weight loss, business, whatever. You have to get your identity in check. Because like we talked about, for context, you're on autopilot 90% of the day. So, and if we go, well, what are we on autopilot to? It's your identity. It's who you think you are. So if your identity is unworthy, you're going to have actions that are in congruence with an unworthy person. So very, very good. Or in like weight loss with our clients, if their identity is a binger, well, what do bingers do? They find reasons to binge eat. So like we're showing you like how to lose weight, but then like you binge eat, it butts heads. The problem is most people's identity, i.e. who they think they are, the beliefs that they have around them about themselves, are only made up of the bad things about themselves that they don't like, that they want to change. But if we think about that, the relationship, your identity and your subconscious mind are really interesting. You're on autopilot 90% of the day. That means your subconscious mind's in charge. If your identity basically just assume that your subconscious mind guards your identity like a mother bear.
Yeah.
So if your identity is, I'm a broke piece of shit, and you get into money, your subconscious mind's like, not my baby. And it takes you back to what your identity's at. It's like Ed Milet talks about it, like the thermostat on a wall. Thermostat is set at 70, house heats up to 80. The thermostat kicks on and cools the room off to where the setting is at. It's the same thing with us. So instead of trying to fight uphill shitty identity and new results, and then like that grind, which it will win, you won't. The game is, well, why don't you just change your identity? So that's what I had all these conversations with our clients about changing your identity. Everyone had issues with it. Everyone's like, it's hard. If you've never heard of this concept before and I go, yeah, just change who you are or whatever, it's really hard. And these things aren't tangible.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, but how do I do that? How do I just step into this new person? It sounds really woo woo and like it's hard, Well, and even if someone's on board, it's really hard to quantify. And that's the thing. If we cannot quantify, then we have problems. So my thing is, one of the best ways to make an intangible tangible is create a tangible plan. So in our coaching program, we've had to become really good at this because half of the issues our clients struggle with are intangible. Your identity, your belief systems, your relationship with food, your relationship with yourself, your consistency, like all these things, it's not tangible. If I said do 10 push-ups, that is really tangible. If I say my water bottle, that's tangible. But fix your relationship with yourself and step into who you're supposed to be. Now I sound like someone that should be just smoking a bunch of weed. But the thing is, this is why we have to understand it from the science and psychology, where from the step one is understand why this matters. You're on autopilot 90% of the day. We need to control your autopilot. Your autopilot is who you think you are, because then you act in accordance with that. So if your autopilot's in the wrong direction, you're going to get a different destination. So that's the tactical side of this, whether it's fitness, money, weight loss, business, happiness, marriage, whatever, it doesn't matter. But then now we have to go, well, how do I set that autopilot? This is where the Coma Letter comes into place. So because my brain operates best in stories and analogies and if this actually happened in real life. So my thing is, what I tell people with the Coma Letters, I want you to imagine you are going into brain surgery. You're like, if you've ever had surgery, you know what it's like sitting in the weird bed with the weird nightgown on. It's a little cold. Doctor's coming in and talking to you. Your butt's half out too.
Yeah.
Weird drafts everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You got a bunch of stickers on you and stuff.
Exactly.
And you're a little nervous. Doctor comes in and he goes, all right, Baker, listen, you had a nasty fall, or that was a vicious car accident. Now I got to go in and do some brain surgery, do what I do. Here's the problem. I have a 50-50 shot at resetting your brain. Like what I always say, like Men in Black style, where they just like, and you have no recollection. Your mind is a blank slate. So imagine, like if you're listening to this, literally play this out. You are in a hospital bed. You had a vicious accident, and the doctor has to go in and do what doctors do. And your doctor says, look, man, this is serious. I got to go and I'm going to do what I do best. But I have a 50-50 shot of hitting the reset button in your brain. As in, you don't know who mom is. As in, you don't know how old you are. You don't know who the president is. You don't know anything. You are a blank slate. So, well, got about 30 minutes. I want you to write a letter to yourself to read when you wake up, assuming I hit that reset button. So you're going to put in there, like, there's my mom. Here's my dad. Here's, 2023, whatever. But you're going to want to know who you are specifically. I mean, imagine how scary that would be, waking up and having no recollection of your fucking name, no recollection of your desires, who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. So get all that on paper. Here's the thing though. I would want to know, would you put in there everything that you currently believe about yourself? Would you put in there that you're not confident? Would you put in there that you're the most self-deprecated person you know? Would you put in there that you feel worthless, that you're not deserving of happiness, that you don't know if you're going to make it, that you're a binger, a struggler, a lost cause, you're too old for it, all the things you say about yourself? Would you put that in that letter? Probably not. If you are like me, you would lie through your freaking teeth. I'm telling you, if it was me, I would write the most superhero letter. I would be like, I'm a world-renowned speaker. I have millions I had millions in the bank, but just went through a rough time.
Yeah,
but money's coming back in, right? Because like you can't argue with the money, but I would want the identity of, no, I'm a multimillionaire. I have great relationships. I'm an expert communicator. I leave everyone in a better place than when they approached me. I would literally write the most superhero letter. So here's the cool thing. That's who you're actually supposed to be. Like, that's actually the version of you that you were meant to be. Whether you believe in God, the universe, energy, quantum stuff, Big Bang, I don't care. That's the version you're supposed to be. So here's the cool thing. You don't need a near-death experience, brain surgery to become that. Here's the cool thing. You can right now, everyone listening to this should do that exercise. Take like literally a half hour, write the Coma Letter and play it out. Like, actually believe it would happen. And actually give it the intention it deserves. And then here's the cool thing. That's who you're supposed to be. Now that's your identity. Well, you're not that version right now. Your version of yourself right now is an artifact. It's from the last several years of your actions. Just like weight loss is, if I'm not the way I want to be, it's not because of what I did last week. It's what I've done the last couple of years. So your reality currently is a history lesson. Like, even in business, we all know business operates on a big cycle. If I have money issues now, it's because I forgot to do something about a year ago and it's just now coming to the surface. Yeah. Well, now if that's the version of you, now the simplest thing ever, it's the hardest, but it's simple. All you've got to do is align your actions with that version of yourself. So if you like paint this superhero picture, cool. When that person doesn't feel like doing the thing they know they should do, what do? Well, they probably execute. How does that person react when they have an emotional response to something? Do they let the emotions take the driver's seat, or do they take a step back, get equanimous and chill out, then make the right decision? If you align everything with what's that version of me do, you'll never make a bad decision and you'll get everything you want in life.
It's so powerful. So powerful. And literally the second that I heard that, I'm writing down notes and I'm writing out the whole concept so I don't forget it. And I think that coupling that with the analogy that Ed Milet makes with the thermostat, right? So like, if you are all of a sudden you set your thermostat at that higher temperature, and if you're down here in the low, the 50s, and you set your temperature all of a sudden at 80, what are you doing? You're trying to get back to that equilibrium where the heater can shut off, right? Like, you're trying to get back to where it's exactly where it should be. So like you said, it's just like the whole idea of manifestation, right? Like, I truly believe in manifestation, but I also think that the idea of manifestation, one of the big benefits of it is if you have those clearly defined goals and you have those things outlined in your mind that you're trying to get to eventually, that goal in mind, very similar concept to the Coma Letter, then subconsciously you're looking for opportunities to achieve those things, or at least to get closer to achieving those things. So anytime you have a sales goal in your business, right, what are you looking for opportunities for the entire month, right, or the entire quarter? Is you're looking for more opportunities to make more money, to sell, to hit your goal. Same exact thing with your life, with your goals, with the things that you're manifesting. So guys, you have our permission to pause the episode and do that right now, because it is so freaking powerful, right? Yeah. And feel free to message Jared or message me and let us know what your letter looks like and what that version of you that you want to step into looks like, because that's the ultimate goal of, I know a lot of what you're doing, Jared, and a lot of what I'm trying to do with this podcast in particular is help people to see that it doesn't have to be how it has been so far. Right? Like there is that other version. Yeah, exactly. Like God gave, like you've mentioned, kind of alluded to a few times, like God gave all of us specific calculated gifts. Everybody's got something that they're better at or know more about or are more passionate about than the rest of everybody else. And so like those are the things that you should be using. Those are the things that come easy to you, that you enjoy more, right? That you need to be leveraging and using, because you can create a much more enjoyable, better outcome of a life on the back end of that just by using what's already there, what's already in your toolkit. Mm-hmm. I know we've kind of referenced religion a few times here. You grew up in a very religious household, if I'm not mistaken. Talk about what that looked like.
Yeah, and this is actually something I'm working through with therapy stuff. It's interesting. So with my childhood, I grew up in a normal like Christian household and stuff. But for some reason, it's interesting. It wasn't just, it was, I was like the only one that felt this way. So I don't know if this was more on like a parent thing, or if it was more like the church I went to when I was little or whatever. This is why like two kids, same house, can have a completely different, different, like upbringing, if you will. But basically, I'll put it this way. My first therapist is shocked I'm not an atheist. Because of like, we'll call it church hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Religiously things used the wrong way. So I did grow up in like a very Christian household. Like wasn't allowed to swear. Like it's probably why I swear so much.
Because you got freedom now.
Yeah, that's right. Things like that. And don't get me wrong. Like I love my mom and dad. This is not a knock at them by any means.
Not at all.
But I grew up from the ages of 10 to probably 17, no exaggeration, petrified of getting thrown in hell. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about like, not panic attacks every day, but like, it's probably why I have, working through a lot of anxiety consistently, because my emotional home, if I'm not careful, goes straight to worry, fear, doubt. And one of the things that my therapist uncovered today was, cool, like you go to hell. What's that mean though? And I go, failure. Like you failed the human race. Like you fail. And I go, oh, holy shit. And I'm like, if I think about struggles I have in, let's say with the business, is because I'm scared of failing my team. I'm scared of failing the business. My marriage, I'm scared of failing in my marriage. I'm like, everything comes back to this debilitating fear of failure, which means I have to sit with this now, which means the work around this is not go achieve more. The actual answer is give my inner child permission to fail. It's like if I have a kid and he's like, if he was sad that his dog died, the answer is not be like, well, buddy, you got toys. You should be happy. I'll just get you a new dog. That's suppression. If I had a son, I would say, hey buddy, daddy's sad too. It's okay to be sad here. Like you're allowed to be sad with daddy. Hold space. This means I have an inner child that hasn't been seen from this angle yet.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I'm telling you, dude, she said that. And I'm just like, it was like a shockwave went through my system. I'm like, holy shit. It's why like I've been emotional all day, because I've got like, there's this inner child that like finally got seen today after 32 years of like, here's what's crazy. I thought I already worked through this shit. I've already like been on the other side, if we want to call it that. But this is the crazy thing about inner work is there's levels. A mentor of mine, Kyle Cease, put it this way, is that when you're not ready to deal with something, or the body, or like your body psychology isn't, your body just stores it until you are ready. It's almost like the analogy he uses is like when you're in 4th grade, you've heard of this calculus thing, but you're not ready for it. It's not time yet. You're not in the right grade to do calculus. So, but it exists. But about 10th or 11th grade, boom, calculus. This is when people are like, where did this come from? I thought I was through with this. Or why has this not been a struggle, but now it is? It's because you're in the 11th grade. And then your body, you store it, and your body's like, blah, time to fuck with this now. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And so that's where I'm at right now. You just literally caught me on the day where this became like the thing, which is pretty cool. But
yeah, it's good for me. Yeah, it's
right. But, and it's good for me to talk about it more,
exactly,
So,
yeah.
It just makes it more raw and those things. But at the end of the day, man, that's it with my childhood stuff is that was the thing. So from a very young age, I got taught to be debilitated by fear. And I'll be honest, my relationship with God was strictly fear driven.
Yeah. You were afraid of him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I literally thought God like held me above the pit of hell with his fingers. And he's like, look at boobies and I'll fucking drop you in. And I'm like, I'm 13. Boobies are dope.
With his hand. Yeah. With his hand like this, ready to just strike you down at any given time.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So this is why I also like, things are in an interesting place right now, because I also feel like So a lot of God stuff and religious stuff is kind of triggering to me. Triggers aren't bad, by the way. People hear trigger and they're like, oh, trigger warning. No. We can only heal through triggers. You have to be triggered to heal. But this is the thing. And I'm like, if I'm like that's the hard part. I'm like, if I want to get closer to God, closer to like, or source, the whatever you want to call this higher level of intelligence, I'm like, it's hard. Cause like, I know it's not, if we want to get really specific, it's not his fault. I was taught wrong.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's like, imagine Baker, imagine you and I are great. Our relationship is great. But imagine if I thought you did something to me and it was because someone else said it. Someone's like, yeah, Baker was talking shit. Baker said this. And imagine if I had years of evidence to show you hated me. Yeah. You treated me like shit. All the things. And then to come to find out all those are wrong. It doesn't take away the hurt. It doesn't take away the baggage. It doesn't take away the whatever.
You can't erase that thing that was even unsaid that you just thought was happening back here, right?
Right. But I want to fix the relationship between us. And that's kind of where I'm at right now is and that here's what's crazy. I would argue the fact that I'm aware of that. I have this is why I'm the least religious I've ever been, but the most spiritual I've ever been.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Because I believe they're completely different. So, but yeah, that's to answer the long-winded answer about like my weird childhood growing up. That's it basically.
Yeah, no, I think it's powerful, and I think it's a lot. Honestly, I think it's something that everybody struggles with with the subject or the topic of religion, right? And I, at a young age, one thing that I struggled with was I grew up in a very small town, Oklahoma, right? So you knew what denomination everybody was. You knew how often people went to church. You knew like everything going on with everybody in town. And so, I grew up playing a lot of travel baseball. And so there was a lot of weekends and stuff where we'd be out of town or we'd be at a tournament or we'd be and like, I always felt semi-judged whenever people would talk about that as a child, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. When people would be like, you didn't go to church this weekend? And then like, I would feel like, but I would see these same kids, they were the ones that were like introducing cuss words to all of our vocabularies, right? Like they were the same ones that were getting in trouble and getting expelled and suspended. And I'm like, I remember wrestling with that feeling at a very young age of like, church is supposed to be this thing that makes you a good person. But all of the people that are good people that go to church, like they're the ones that are holding it over our head, making us feel guilty if we aren't able to make it or don't make it that particular week. And they're the ones that I'm seeing be the worst people in public. And so I consider myself a religious person, and I pray every single day. But I think a relationship with that higher power looks different for everybody. And it sounds like you're kind of stepping into that for yourself as far as what that relationship looks like for you. For me, it's making sure that I'm having those conversations. Right. It's making sure that in my prayers, like I like to format mine in a conversation. Like I'm catching up with God on a daily basis, telling him what's going on with me, telling him what I'm looking for, like what I'm asking for. I'm praying for the safety and health of the people around me, for my wife, right? Like thanking him for her. And for me, it's like, I think you should be, involved in some sort of church, whatever that looks like for you, right? Where really in the Bible it says where more than one is gathered, essentially, right? But I also think that it's just about finding that relationship, like what really speaks to you. For some people, it's worship music, right? Like that's when they feel closest to God. For some people, it's going to church and being in community. For me, it's just having conversations. Like acting like me and God are bros, and we just talk, like we just catch up on a daily basis. And so it sounds like you're kind of evolving into that type of like a relationship that you're figuring out that works for you.
You know what? I think it's interesting. I think in that thing, that's how like in any dynamic I've had with God has been like that. Mine's just had baggage behind it that I didn't know how to address. I think it's like anything else. It's every relationship should be growing or dying. Like my wife and I have been together since literally like middle school, and our relationship it can only grow. Like if we want it to last, it can only grow. So I think it's the same thing with anything, whatever someone's deity or source or God or whatever you want to call it, is it has to grow. Otherwise, if you stay stagnant, then you're regressing. But that was also the dichotomy I struggled with, is I would see all the people that I like went to church with when I was little, but they were the ones shit talking. They were the ones like literally being manipulative. They were the ones
Yeah.
doing all the bad stuff. And then all these quote unquote sinners, because they didn't go to church, they were the best,
They were the
best
great,
people I
yeah,
ever
they were
met.
the
Like,
good people. And I'm like, what is this mismatch? Right?
yeah, bro.
Yeah. This is like
Yeah.
everything that I'm hearing you're not supposed to do. And it's what's being applauded, you know?
But I think it's easy though. I think we as people have to be careful not to let the bad ruin the good in that. Like, for example, in every industry, like you and I are both coaches. There are degenerate coaches that we literally can't stand, but we don't want someone to look at us as less than because of some asshole. Or the same thing with like every industry, there's bad cops, but that doesn't mean that some of my best friends are cops that are incredible. Same thing with some doctors are terrible, but some doctors are freaking amazing. So it's the same thing, but this is why we need to do the inner work around whatever these issues are, because suppression never made anything better. If you have an issue in your marriage, you need to address it. If you have in my case, like it's this like kind of this point I'm at with God, and I'm like, I'm trying to work on this. I think it's at the end of the day, everything has to be faced head on, because suppression and avoidance never made anything better. So
no, absolutely. So I in doing research for this episode, right? Like you and I have been friends. We've been, talking on a daily, if not, or weekly, if not daily basis for
bi-daily, tri-daily.
Yeah, exactly. For a long time, months now. Right. And I know a good amount about you, but I wanted to do some more research and try to catch you off guard with some stuff from the old Instagram and stuff like that. So I scrolled back. You have a lot of Instagram posts, by the way, but I scrolled back all the way
3,000s in the 3,000s.
I scrolled back all the way to your first post, right? Wow. And you had a lot of the same posts of all of us, right? Some selfies, some different things, like it looks like from high school maybe even. But the thing that struck me the most, bro, is like how long you have been doing this as a coach. You have been in the game, right, for almost a decade now. It looked like as far as I could tell, 2015.
It's more because I was doing this before social media, or before I was on social. So I'm at like 12 years.
Yeah. So what about this space in particular made you start at such a young age and stick with it?
So I struggled. That's the biggest thing. I think every coach, it's because we struggled with this shit. We got on the other side of it and we go, I want to help more people do this. I think any good coach, that's the big thing. It's why I used back in the day when I was a trainer in the gym, I'd see people all the time go, oh, I love working out. Let me become a trainer. I go, bro, that's going to kill it first and foremost. The easiest way to kill your love for training is become a trainer.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has a compelling reason rooted in their struggle. Growing up, I was everything I talk about in my content. Was my struggle. I was the fat kid. All the Trinity diets, like everything I talk about in my content. And I used to be kind of a victim about it. I'm like, fuck, why me? Like all my friends, all my relatives, everyone's lean, everyone's like athletic. And you got like chunky ass fucking Jared. Like literally like my mom, like even like my family were like, oh, it's husky Jared. And like, it never ended. And so I used to be a victim about it. And I'm like, why me? Fast forward now, I'm grateful for that because I know what it's like. I can relate on a level that a lot of other coaches can't. I know a lot of coaches who have never not had abs. Yep. I know coaches who have never had a worry or insecurity about love handles or about whatever it may be. For me, I know exactly what it is. And then I went through the same struggles. I remember I got a Weight Watchers book when I was like 12. Yeah. Like my mom literally gave me a Weight Watchers book about like, cause I was fat. And I'm like, Mom, I want to lose weight. And my mom was a trendy dieter. So she's like, here's the Weight Watchers book. Do the point thing. So I was literally 12, like counting points. Yeah. And then even like when I went into the gym, when I finally found the gym, I found P90X first. And then I found that, and then
didn't we all?
Bro, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Mine went to here's some stuff most people don't know. I did P90. I did like 3 rounds of P90X, got some results. I'm like, okay, this is dope. I think it's time to join a gym. Scared shitless. I literally took my P90X book with all the exercises in the plan, covered it in duct tape because I didn't want anyone to know it was a P90X book. And I would literally secretly look, close it so no one would see. And I would substitute exercises instead of cause I was in a gym, not at home.
Yeah.
A band chest press. That looks like a bench press. A reverse lunge. I guess that looks like this barbell squat thing a lot of people do. This face pull with the band. I guess that looks kind of like this lat pull machine. I literally substituted And then, but I didn't want anyone to know because I was insecure. And I'm like, I don't want anyone to know. I'm just following like a fucking bootleg version of P90X in the gym. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that was where I started. So I know what it's like. And I remember, dude, I'm my mentor that looks at my like email copy and stuff. I put this in a story I told the other day, and he's like, what the fuck does that mean? I remember being so naive. I remember reading an article that said the 7 worst foods to eat while driving. So I literally thought I couldn't eat apples while behind the wheel of a car. Otherwise it was going to store fat. So like I've been there. I know like this is why that's where it started for me. Got on the other side of it through help, mentorship, community, the right information, the right implementation, the right people taking me under their wing. And I just feel like the natural next thing is I want to do the same thing for other people. You know, that's actually one of the biggest differences between serotonin and dopamine in the brain. We all know dopamine hits. Like you'll get a dopamine hit by scrolling on social media. Yep. Serotonin requires helping other people. Really? How crazy is that? Yeah. If what I remember is from my research is correct, serotonin usually involves, in a lot of cases, service to others. So, which is pretty crazy. So that's why I think we need to be in service to others and things like that. But it's like, it's one of those things like someone finally builds their business and gets to a sustainable point. They want to show other people how to build that business because they know what it's like. So I think that's where it started. For me, why I've stayed though is a few things. Number one, to have massive levels of success. I knew I'm going to have to plant my roots somewhere. Yeah. I will not be successful if I do fitness coaching for a year or two, then go to real estate for a year or two, then go to fucking crypto for a year or two, then go to whatever bullshit. I knew for me to be successful, I've got to camp out. So what can I do forever? What's helpful to other people? And what actually makes a difference? Because the underlying theme behind everything that I do, I got thinking about this the other day, actually. The reason that drives all this, and this is why I also feel like when people come to my business, opposed to other fitness businesses or coaching businesses, everyone's like, something's different about this. Like not just the inner game stuff, but like people are like, there's something different about here. And it's because I think the normal part of this journey, like before and after pictures are dope. Your clothes fitting are dope. Your fat loss is dope. Getting strong, that's all great. That's not the main thing for me though. The main thing for me are giving our people joy, freedom, and never settling. That's it. I've always hated the fact that people settle in anything. They settle for a marriage that they can't stand. They settle for a body they can't stand. They think living in anxiety is just something that you do as you get older. Like, no, that's settling and suffering. So that's always bugged me on, like, since I was a fucking teenager. People settling is always gotten under my skin. I've always no, there's no reason to settle. But then I got thinking the fundamentals behind, like, especially now, like why do I love coaching the way we do so much is, and it's not the fat lossy stuff. That's cool. It's part of it, but it really goes down to like, what's beneath that? It's joy and freedom. Mm-hmm. Everyone just wants joy. Everyone just wants to be joyful and enjoy and be happy and all those things. But when you are in what I call mental, physical, and emotional incarceration, you cannot have joy. I actually just did a YouTube video on this where all I want to do is give people freedom. That's all it is. But if you are trapped in your own body, hate the way you look, hate the way you feel, hate like feel that you're uncontrollable, feel like you know what to do but don't do it, your actions aren't in control, you're not having freedom. And if you're not having freedom, you're not having joy. But then we have the same thing emotionally. You feel like an emotional wreck. You're anxious, you're stressed, you're worried. Your emotions take the driver's seat. You're just a wreck. Everything's going good, but then up, down, sideways emotionally, you don't know how to handle them. You don't let yourself feel your emotions. You hide it with work or food or productivity or your kids or whatever. Well, then that's emotional incarceration. You're emotionally trapped. And then you have mentally the same thing. So really I go that I would say that's the biggest reason is the mission is actually not just results. It's but giving people freedom on those three things.
Wow. I have another quote that this leads perfectly into. So if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough.
Yeah, this is something I struggle with a lot. It's because, and as a guy that has gratitude tattooed literally on my radial bone, yep. This goes back into a few different things. One, you get what you look for. If all you see is lack, you're going to find more lack. If you want to get into the quantum physics world where if all you do is look at what you don't have, that is a very low frequency. For sure. That is from a vibrational standpoint, bro. That is so low. But then like that original quote from James Allen, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. So if you are lack, you're going to receive on that level of lack versus if you are grateful and present and feeling abundant in what you have, well, it's no fucking wonder you get more. And dude, like clockwork, I have to be very careful, but especially in business about getting in my own head with this stuff. And I'll drift if I'm not careful. Because in business, I look at the metrics every day. Like where are leads at, where's sales at? What about client retention, clients coming in? How's my team?
One of my worst habits is opening Stripe every single day, multiple times a day.
Bro, I'm telling you, but here, this is the nuance. How is being able to audit your metrics to make the appropriate adjustments without letting it change your frequency, without letting it change your energetic state. I used to be really bad about this. I'd be on an emotional roller coaster and then my results would be on a roller coaster. But I notice, I'm really quick to notice. I'm like, ooh, wait, this isn't okay. Because then here's the thing. This took me so long to learn. It's still a work in progress. Whatever energetic and vibrational state you're in, it touches whatever you're working on. So if I create content because I'm freaking out about leads being low, the content doesn't do very well. And it doesn't matter. I've literally seen this play out so many times I can't even explain to you. I have all the check marks of a good piece of content. I have the savage hook that appeals to emotion, that makes a promise, that arouses curiosity, that's entertaining, that changes like everything. But it's because I'm like, I got to do something that's going to go viral to get leads. And ironically, it tanks. I have it filmed on the nice camera, all the things. My most recent post that popped off, that crushed, that literally had people seeing it for the first time, and they literally DM me saying, take my money, I want to work with you, is I didn't care. I assumed there's only 500 people is going to see my video. So I go, I don't care if this goes viral. I'm going to speak to only my ideal person. I don't care if anyone signs up. I literally have this filmed. It was filmed on my phone, 0 editing, 0 jump clips, lots of pauses, no hook. And I literally put my phone outside and I just started it. And I literally audibly said, I go, what do people need to hear right now? And I spoke.
Yeah.
And only pure fucking brilliance came out. Literally, the first words I say, carbs and calories aren't your problem. And I literally dove in about why the inner game is the problem. Like my fucking message. Bro, that video went, like, I want to say that video hit like 120 some thousand, 150,000 new eyes. It was 98% non-followers. It dominated, shared like crazy. People were literally messaging me like, where can I work with you?
Yeah.
And then here's what's even fucked up. The video was 2 minutes long. Instagram's only good for 90 seconds. So literally half that video was gone and it crushed.
Wow.
But it's because but I would argue it's because I let go of expectation. I wasn't chasing the outcome. And my intention and my energy was, how can I help these people? What do they need to hear the most right now? And that video fucking popped off. No call to action whatsoever. Half the video was gone. But it's because I truly believe it was what I was in the most alignment with. And it's no wonder I got what I was, not what I wanted. So this is why it's hard. It's so easy to feel good about your business and what you're doing in your weight loss or whatever when the results are in your favor. It is one of the things that I just finished one of his books. One of my favorite people to learn from is Dr. Dispenza, is Dr. Joe. And Joe, I can't remember how he words it exactly. He goes, is basically talking about is your ability, how's he word it? Your ability to control your inner state in the absence of chaos around you is going to dictate ultimately how successful you're going to be. Like how much can you control your inner state independent of your external circumstances? So as in when that bank account is in the negatives, feeling a pure abundance and grateful.
Yeah.
Like that's hard. That's fucking hard. Trying to tell our clients that like when the scale spikes for them to be emotionally feeling their best, like that's hard, but that's what it takes. And I think if you want to get into quantum stuff, if you want to get into God stuff, I that's the thing is that's a kind of a universal test. Like, it's like kind of where's faith at? That ties to faith. That ties to all of this stuff. So it's crazy, bro.
No, it is. It is. And I think that For you, it seems like, I mean, I know you started out in the gym as a trainer, right? Like, so you went through this period of, even getting comfortable yourself. You started out just in your own house or in your own garage. You first started to step into the gym. You were even embarrassed at that point, right? And then you transitioned into an in-person trainer. What did that transition look like to get into, I'm now coming from this place of insecurity and always have been in the husky guy, always have been, even nervous to work out at the gym, didn't want people to even know where my workouts came from, to I'm going to teach you now, random stranger or person around me, I'm going to teach you how to work out.
I mean, I think a lot of it started with my own journey. And then I got the concept of exposure therapy. You go to the gym 100 times, you will absolutely feel better with this. It's honestly how like we teach to fix someone's relationship with exercise. If someone comes to us and they're like, my relationship with exercise is terrible and I'm scared shitless of the gym, the last thing I do is have them go to dumbbells. The first thing I have them do is literally go to the gym and walk on the treadmill for like 10 minutes and leave. Do that for like the first month. Anyone can walk in, turn the treadmill on and leave. But what's going to happen is now exposure therapy kicks in and all of a sudden the gym isn't as scary. While they're on the treadmill, they're seeing all the people that look like them. They're looking at all the dumbasses that don't know what they're doing either. And then all of a sudden one thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next. And now all of a sudden, then like usually with that, we'll have them do that. And then they're doing body weight workouts they're comfortable with just in the gym. Then all of a sudden they're doing those band workouts at home in the free weight section. Then they're doing the dumbbell version of those. Like it's just exposure therapy, right? So I did the same thing. Is as I got there, I got more comfortable. I made friends. Conversations happened. I started working out with a group of guys, like, and that's where that happened. Then results came. Then I had a stack of evidence that I am who I thought I was, that I was working on. So that got that part comfortable. And then from there I go, I think I want to. Actually, from then how I became a trainer though is I went to school to be a physical therapist. And then I found out that wasn't my thing, but I found basically personal training. It was one of the things, one of the classes was a personal trainer prep class essentially that partnered with the university. And we ended up doing practicals and like going to the gyms, writing programs for our classmates and like training each other. And it was fucking dope. I fell in love with it. That met my entrepreneurial bone and it was over. And so then I built the business.
Yeah. And then you kind of transition to mostly now you're online, right? You have this big business of multiple coaches, you also, like you've mentioned several mentors just in this conversation alone. I know you have one for even copywriting. You mentioned a therapist. You just hired your own fitness coaches. You've got
business
coaches, right? Like you've got all sorts of. You seem to be very comfortable or obsessed with personal growth, and you're putting your money where your mouth is, right? On investing in that in your own life. First of all, I'm interested, and I think other people will be interested. How much have you spent on your own personal growth and development, right? And
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Also, I'm curious, like, why are you so all in on doing that? Like, why are you so all in on investing?
Yeah. I spent well over 6 figures. I actually added I had someone ask me on a Q&A on Instagram, and I added it up, and it's like low $100,000s, like $100,000 to $130,000 a lifetime. Which sounds absurd, but first of all, that wasn't like all at once, but like it was immediate ROI. Like my first mentor I couldn't afford him, but working with him, I made a little over what I paid him per month back. So it was net positive. And then my next mentor, like my next big mentor it was a scary one. I paid my first big mentorship, I paid 20 grand. My first month with him, I made $48,000.
Wow.
ROI achieved. Free coaching at that point. Like whenever I invest, I'm like, how quick can I make this back? You know what I mean? But the thing is, usually people who give me flack about that have university degrees they aren't using that they're never going to pay off. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like going to school, paying 200 grand in school loans to make 100 grand a year does not make sense in my brain. Like I'm not the greatest at math, but I can do that math. And then as far as like why I'm such an advocate of this is number one is how can I sell coaching ethically and not invest in coaching? Like put your money where your mouth is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And number two is this is truly the biggest reason. I am an impatient bastard. I'm telling you, I can always go make more money. But if I can pay someone to show me in 1 year to do what I would take me on my own in 10, I mean, if it's true that I want what I say I want, why would I not take that bet? It blows me away. People who like that, who aren't very serious about coaching and like weight loss, they'll say, oh my gosh, I want this so bad. And they're spending money on bullshit. and then they're not willing to invest in themselves here, and they're like willing to go try it on their own again. I'm like, wait, you've been trying this on your own for a decade and it hasn't been working, and you spend $1,000 a month on Uber Eats, but you won't invest in this. Like, truthfully, it's because they don't want what they say they want. So for me, I want what I say I want enough to where my dollars are involved, because that's the true test. We're all serious until we have to put money down. And then it's like, you know what I mean? So for me, I'm impatient, and I'm okay saying that. I am relentlessly ambitious, and I have crazy goals, and we don't have that long. Literally, I think about death so much, dude. I have a big tattoo on my left arm, a big sleeve, and I have a giant clock on my bicep. It's because it's my reminder of what I call the dichotomy of time. You have plenty, but you're running out. This whole idea that I came up with, where like I need to be present because we have plenty of time, but also there's a sense of urgency. Like, we only have like 80 years on this planet. And like, that's crazy to think about, you know? So for me, I'm like, fuck, I got to make this shit happen. If I'm going to do what I want to do, and me doing it on my own, trial and erroring, is going to take so long and so much more frustration, versus why don't I just hire the person who has a proven track record who can do this for me, and I'll just go make more money. That's the way that I view it.
Yeah. And I have a very, very similar outlook on it. It's, for me, I've spent, you know, I'm much greener in my entrepreneurial career than you are. But I've already invested a little over 20 grand in my own personal development outside of college, and all the money that I wasted there. And I was talking about this on a recent episode of like, yeah, in college, I kind of just, I skated by. It wasn't difficult for me. So I just kind of like justified, like, this isn't taking a bunch of my mental capacity. Like, this isn't taking enough away from me. It wasn't as much of a pain to where I had to do something about like getting out of it. So I just kind of like skated by and just continued to do it. Right. But now, like, what I look for in my education and my personal development, I mean, I don't know if you saw the other day, the trip that Mike and I had out to California, we spent $10,000 for a day of education.
Yeah.
Right. And that was like crazy to me. I had spent $11,000 or $12,000 before that on personal development over the course of like 6 month, you know, coaching kind of agreements and everything. And so the fact that like we risked that for one day of development, that was a huge deal for me. But it also, I'm looking for this one thing, you know, if I'm going to invest, I'm looking for this one thing that is going to pay me back that 10,000 plus more, right? Like, this one thing that I now am armed with, like, I can put this in my my sheath of arrows that like I have now forever.
Yeah.
And that's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow back here for when some point down the road, you know, you never reach full capacity, right? But at some point down the road, for nearly any situation or anything that I encounter in life, I've got something I can pull out and I can use in this specific situation. And so that's how I'm kind of approaching it now. And it sounds like you have a very similar, I guess, outlook on that.
Skills don't leave, man. You know, that's the cool thing is like, knock on wood, I would hate to lose everything tomorrow, but let's say I did. It would not take me 12 years to get back here.
No.
Fuck, give me less than a year, and I would get back to like full steam ahead. It would suck, right? And I would work my teeth bare.
Yeah.
But I have these skills. That's the thing people don't realize is, when you're investing in yourself, you should be getting skills. One of the other questions people ask, even when we're coaching people, what's your favorite part about coaching? Yeah, it's the freedom, the joy, all that stuff. But otherwise, it's literally like, I love giving people skills no one can take away. Yeah. Fixing your relationship with food, that is a skill that won't leave. Understanding how to process your emotions therapeutically and help in a way that's helpful, and how to lose weight sustainably and keep it off while getting really, really strong. We don't, like I always say, we don't just give results. We give results and a skill set to match, because then you don't need us. That's what I think a good mentor does is, of course, there's always like the next and the next and the next, and the goals continue to grow. But even like Alex Hormozi was talking about that. He's lost everything twice, but he goes, but because I understand from a skill set, I can build it. It's not a waste. So that's the way I view it.
I love it. Another pretty constant in your life, and went back even to like the first post that I saw on your Instagram, is your wife. Talk about you guys' relationship, what that's looked like as an entrepreneur, you know, like to have somebody so solid for so long, especially with the lifestyle that you've chosen, that I've chosen, the things that we subject ourselves to and the people around us to. Talk about you and your wife.
Dude, this is the easiest way to get me emotional too, by the way. Literally, like,
same.
I found out my biggest speaking engagement to date was I was speaking at Jason's coaching con, and 700 people. It was fucking great. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm just I love it so much. Well, that was the first time my wife ever saw me speak. Like, she sees like bullshit like in my office, Zoom. She's never seen me speak in person. And it was the biggest one I'd ever done. And so literally, like, I'm doing good. I'm talking. I'm crushing it. I'm ripping these people's faces off. And then in the back, I see this. I literally see her like recording like between the two lights. And I'm like, like I made a post about it. I'm like, today I cried in front of 700 people.
Yeah.
But dude, that's the thing, dude. She's amazing. I've got kind of a unicorn story with my wife. Crazy, even kind of gross High School Musical vibes. First girlfriend.
I know. First girlfriend. Yeah. That's what's crazy about it for you guys.
Yeah. First girl. I'm basically her first boyfriend. She had like, when she was like 13, like 13-year-old boyfriend, the kind of thing. Yeah. But I don't think they count. I'm saying at least they don't count.
The kind that held hands and everyone freaked out about.
Right. But other than that human, whatever, otherwise, like we're first everything. And which is crazy, you know what I mean? Which is it's super, it's super uncommon, but like it's incredible. The cool thing was, and this is what got things in therapy started getting so deep today, was for the longest time, Shelby is who like why I got the business off the ground. Like, dude, I was making no money. I was like trying to pull shit together at like a Papa John's and a GNC and working for my dad, but like the business was not off the ground, and she was working like 12-hour shifts at a steakhouse. But dude, this entire time, she's never once been like, are you sure this is going to work? Like, how long is it going to, like, not one time. And we actually have had like sit down in like almost like hardcore agreements. Like, yo, look, this is the journey that I'm on. Are both of our actions and expectations in alignment with this is the mission. This is what I'm doing. And cause I think a lot of couples get into trouble when they're not both in alignment. The one is like getting resentful, and like the other like feels like, oh, they don't get it. And it's this big issue. Versus we had like almost like a form. We didn't like get a contract down, but a formal sit down of like, are we both on board with this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But otherwise it's incredible. Known her since, I always say like it started, we met when I kicked her in the mouth. We met in martial arts when we were little. Nice. I had this crush on her. Like, I liked the cute blonde in the front row. And then, at the time we were just kids, the instructor's like, all right, find a partner. We're going to spar. And all of a sudden I'm with the cute blonde, and I'm like, oh, I got to impress her. So I did one of those jump spinny kick things. I put it right in her teeth on accident. I meant to hit her like in her chest, but I put it right in her teeth. And then
that
from
should be a lesson for all of our young single men listening. If you just kick her hard enough in the face, maybe something will shift in her brain to where she falls in love with you.
That's right. Yeah. But otherwise, man, she's been with me since day one. She's seen like I'm telling you, she knows me more than I know. Like, she can tell, like, she never like is like, hey, can you quit working? Like, stop working so much. None of that. But she can tell when I need to be done. She can tell like when I've like, hey, I think you need to go play video games for a while. Hey, I think you should probably talk to the therapist about that. Or, hey, what's going on? I can tell something's there, you know? And it's the beautiful thing about having a great relationship that goes that deep is there's levels of understanding that no one else can relate to. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, Kinsey's really the spot that can cut right through me too. I don't even know if I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast yet. I think I've touched on kind of her and her support a few times, but there was a time early on in our relationship even where I had been in kind of like a bad partnership, and the company wasn't going to go. Like, I had basically gotten told by these partners who were funding the venture, and they were also kind of like siphoning funds from the venture. Like, it was like a really, I don't want to get into like too many details on it, but it was not a good situation. And they had kind of said like, hey, you know, this is just like a courtesy thing. Like, we're going to shut this down soon, like in the next couple of weeks. And I remember just being like, kind of like lost, man. Like, I had followed her to Texas, right? To Dallas, Texas, where my rent all of a sudden went from $400 a month to $1,500 a month. Right. And I'm betting on all these things to go right for me. I'm betting on just the new big opportunities that are here in Texas for me. And I was just freaking out, like living in just stress, because I was also living alone, right? Like, we didn't live together until we got married. And so I would see her just on the weekends usually for a day and a half before she would go back home and then start to go to work for the week. And so it was there was one particular situation, and this was before I even proposed to her, where she kind of like sat me down and she told me, she was like, if you want to go pursue your own things exclusively, like no more partnerships, no more anything, like if you want to go do, like if you want to put whatever we have into this, I will make sure that you're taken care of because I know you're going to, I believe in you. And like, that was like the second that for me, like as entrepreneurs, that's something that you hope for, but you also can't ever like see it for real playing out. Like you hope for that you have that ride or die, that you have that person on the other side of the relationship that would live in a hut with you, right? Like if you came down to it, because they just believe in you and they want to, like the Layla Hormozy, like in on all the things that
I'll live under a bridge. I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You hope that person's on the other side of the relationship, but you don't know until you hit a situation, like that, where they have the opportunity to show it. Because someone can say that all day long, but if they're not really about it, they're not really about it.
Right.
And that was the moment for me where I was just kind of like, this is what I've always searched for, right? And proposed and everything like that. But it hit me again this past weekend at the event in California. A lot of it was inner work. A lot of the thing that the event that we kind of paid for and went out to, a lot of it was inner work and figuring out what's my bullshit that I'm bringing into Mike and I's partnership, what's his bullshit that he's bringing into our partnership, what's the combined bullshit level of the two of us, right? And then what's getting passed down to the team, And so we were talking about a lot of stuff, and Mike's getting emotional here and there, and nothing really is like getting me, and I'm kind of just talking. And one of the things that they had us do was talk about our relationships, and I talked a little bit about Kinsey, and I'd made a couple of comments of, my wife, who, she's way better than I deserve, and like all this stuff, and they were kind of like, why do you believe that? And I talked about a few conversations that her and I had recently where, I had kind of told her the same stuff of like, I've got to buckle down for a while. Like this is just going to be, I'm going to have to spend my time in my office where I'm at right now, right? 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days, where sometimes she's out in the rest of the apartment, doing her own thing, and I'm a few feet away, but super far in reality. And they were kind of poking and prodding at that, and they were like, did you ask her if that's what she wants? And I was like, well, I'm doing it for her. She knows I'm doing it for her. Like I've told her that this is why I'm doing it, is for this life that I'm trying to create. And they're like, did she say that she wants that? Would she rather be spending the more time with you now? Would she opt for more time and more you and her right now? And it kind of hit me of like, I never really asked her. Mm-hmm. I never gave her that choice. I never talked to her on that type of a level. So the one thing they had us do was like send out gratitude messages. Like, what do you love, honor, and respect about the people in your life? And so I hadn't cried. They had made me kind of like think on a deeper level about it. And I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, Kins, I'm missing you. This is a beautiful view out in California. And I just want to let you know, and it's even kind of hitting me right now. But I just immediately started like, I just broke down on a video that I'm trying to send to my wife that was supposed to be like a happy, like, I just love you and respect you type of thing. And I just apologized to her for like not asking, for not giving her even the slightest inkling of a choice, for just saying, this is what's going to happen. Like, I need you bought in, and that is so tough. Like, she sent all these wonderful things back to me and made me feel great. And, no more crying for me the rest of the weekend. But it's like, it's funny how that partner for you as an entrepreneur can be so impactful, and they can make or break you. Like, truly, I've seen entrepreneurs broken by having a bad partner.
Yeah. I agree.
I've got a quote that I want to get it's kind of the last quote that I have. But it's, your partner takes up the equivalent of 2 close friend spots. Are they worth that?
Completely. Like, there's no hesitation. Like, the right one, yes. Yeah. Here's my thing. I think if you have to qualify, you got some work to do. Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind first is something I learned from the Kyle guy that I keep going back to. Kyle Cease. He's a mentor, but now kind of a friend of mine. He basically talks about when we have to validate, it's a big red flag. We don't, if you think, you do not validate the best things in your life. You don't validate Kinsey. You don't validate the work you do. You don't validate anything. But if you see something you have to validate, it's time to let it go. Like, oh, I think I might stay in this company because like I started here, but like it sucks. But like, they treat me pretty well. Like, no, it's time to let that go.
Yeah.
So, which is hard, so, but no, I completely agree with that. Yeah, without a doubt. So,
and I think that quote too, for those of you guys that might be questioning and looking at like, do I have that right now? It's a pretty cut and dry thing. Like, if you had to give up 2 of your friends right now to keep your partner, would you still feel fulfilled? Would you still feel happy? Would you still feel like that is a worthwhile exchange? No one's going to ask you to do that. But, well, actually, some relationships end up being like that, right? Where it is kind of transactional, but it's something.
That's a red flag in itself.
Yeah, exactly. But it's something that makes you think of like, this person is going to take up the equivalent of 2 whole people in your life forever. Right. So you got to pick the right partner. You got to pick the right person that is worth that, and it sounds like you have that in Shelby. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. All right. Lastly, I know you've talked about this, or actually I got a couple more things for you if you got time, but
yeah, you're good.
I know you've talked about, I remember hearing a conversation with you and Mike, right? When we were out in Naples, back in Florida, and you guys were both talking about this concept of being just dumb enough to make it happen. Right? You talked about your history in school. You talked about a lot of things, and you're like, dude, I'm just too stupid to fail. Right? And you're just like, you talked about what that means. So what does that concept mean to you, and what do you feel like you actually mean by that? Because you're not a dumb guy. You're extremely bright, and anybody that's been listening to this episode so far and how fantastic you are, maybe that's your 300 podcasts, right? But how fantastic you are of just getting your thoughts out into the world in a very understandable fashion. Why do you feel that way about yourself?
First of all, it hasn't always been like that. It's like reps cure all, right?
Yeah,
enough repetitions does. But it's funny is there's like the old saying, like the person who actually changes the world is the one that's dumb enough to believe they can do it. There's a level of delusion that goes into this game.
There is.
I mean, think about it. Just the statistics. The statistics of entrepreneurship are disgusting.
Yeah.
But then like someone like me or Mike, or we're just like, if someone's gonna be able to pull it off, I'm gonna be able to do it. So I think there's a level of that, some like just delusion that like, no, I'm even though logic and statistic are not in the favor, but it's like for some reason my punk ass thinks I can do it. So I think there's a level of that. But the other thing is I'm naturally a little self-deprecative about my education. That came up in therapy again today. Yeah. But it's because I'm not like when it comes to normal education, dude, I'm fucking not that smart. But what I do know is stuff that I've all had to teach myself, or I've had to get in the right rooms and like force it to get into my brain. And then when it's there, it's not going anywhere. But that's what I think it is. Like, oh, I'm just dumb enough to believe I can do it. I think it's that. I think it takes a level of delusion to be able to do some crazy stuff, like to be able to make money, to be able to scale something, to be able to do something impactful. I think it's one of those things you have to have a little bit of delusion to think like, no, out of all, I can do it. So for me, that's what it is a level of delusion. So
it's so funny that you described it in that way, because the people that have listened to every episode so far are going to be sick of me bringing this back up. But I think it's so like, it's always how I've kind of felt. But Chris Williamson talks about the common traits of high achievers. He's up to 700 or almost 800 episodes at this point on his podcast. But he talks about 2 of the top 3 most common traits of entrepreneurs are a superiority complex. So you believe that you're destined for more, you're going to achieve more, you can do more. But you also have a undertone of, I don't know if I am enough. I don't know if I can do it. I'm not sure if that's like in the cards for me.
Check.
So it's like and it's exactly what you just described, right? Without ever probably hearing me talk about that, without ever probably hearing Chris talk about it. But I think it's important to bring it up continually, because this is how all of my conversations with all the people that I've had on so far have been, is like, I just thought I could do it. It didn't seem like a risk to me. Like I just did. And so it's so cool to just hear that proven yet again here, and exactly without me even prompting you that way, you described the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's one of those things. I feel that exact same way. I feel like, I don't know where it comes from. God, delusion, deeper. I don't know. Like I feel like there is something special that I'm supposed to do. And I feel
Absolutely.
like on my lowest day of the low days, I almost sometimes wish I feel like I wasn't chosen. You know what I mean? When it's like, fuck, why me? Out of all people to like give these crazy ass goals to, why do I have to, why do I, why do I have to bear this? Why do I have to be the one?
Why do I feel imprisoned to like this particular path?
Yeah. But it's also a privilege, pressure's a privilege. It's one of those things where, if it's up to me, I know I'm going to get the job done. I know I'm reliable. I know if it's up to me, like it's over, so.
Okay. Lastly, I want to talk about your podcast, Dieting from the Inside Out. Like I said, 296 episodes in, right? You've been doing this way longer than this was the trend, right? Like way before Hormozy said on his big event that everyone needs a podcast, right? And then a lot of these sprung up. And I was so mad at myself because I've been wanting to do this for like 2 years. And I just never actually sat down and did it. And then I saw him talk about that in the event, and I'm like, now whenever I launch one, it's gonna look like I am one of the Hormozy resulting podcasts that came out.
But you're a tourist.
Yes, exactly. I'm just passing through here, man.
That's right.
But I'm curious, with you just having so many hours, like you've done your 10,000 hours at this point, man. Like, who have been your favorite guests? And since quotes are kind of like a big theme that I'm always throwing into my episodes, what do you can answer this in as long or short as you want. What are maybe 2 of the top quotes or the best quote that you feel like has come off of your podcast so far?
I don't know if I have any like direct quotes like memorized. There are so many. There's so
concept many too. If you feel like this was just genius and somebody said it on my show.
Favorite episode to date was Kyle Cease.
Okay.
That was a whole mind fuck up. You want to talk about some fucking manifesting shit? You want to talk about some like energetic stuff where preparation meets opportunity and magic happens? It was that episode. And then just pure bliss came out of it. So the thing is, Kyle, have you ever heard of Kyle?
You've told me about him before. I don't. Yeah. I've never really consumed his content personally. But just so we can let everyone know, what episode of Dieting from the Inside Out is that?
245.
245. Okay, so 51 episodes ago. So you guys check it out.
That's right.
All right, so continue.
So Kyle changed my life and never met me. Kyle's material, his content, his books, his videos, literally, actually, I'll be honest, I got emotional telling him this on the show. Kyle is what gave me permission in a weird way to step into the realm I'm in.
Wow.
You want to talk about some like baller shit, bro. Like what he did with his career is what I did here. And the only reason I was able to step into that with confidence is because I saw Kyle do it. And I'm like, oh, it came at the right time. And, so I was trying to keep it together while telling him this on the show. Mind you, Kyle had never met me before.
Yeah.
And then, so what happened was Kyle's is in this realm of like inner game and all this stuff. Kyle started as like a stand-up comic, went to the top of the spectrum on that, like his own special on Comedy Central. I think it was on Comedy Central, like actor, like all the fame, all of the stuff. And then that became heavy to him. His goal, his dream, he always wanted since he was a kid, ran its course, and he got into the world of transformation, like Tony Robbins style, inner work, all that. And then he's like, man, I just wish I could do both. I wish there was a realm of comedy and transformation, but no one's done that. Holy shit. And he ran full force into it. Now this is all he does. And I had the same issue. Built my dream of my coaching business in the weight loss space. I'm like, cool. Teach people how to like look good naked while eating their favorite foods, like sustainable weight loss. Cool. But I'm like, fuck, it's just feeling heavy. And then mind you, for years leading up to this point, I was all about personal development. Like I have a library behind me, like all this stuff with subconscious patterns and inner work and all this, behavioral psychology and all these things. And I'm like, man, I just wish there was a world where both of these came together because they have to go together. Then I go, but no one's done that. Literally the same thing happened. And I go, I need to do what Kyle did. And I did it. I literally built my entire program and I systemized all these things that come together with this. And then for completely selfish reasons, I go, I would love to have Kyle on the show. I would love to be able to have a conversation with him. I wanted to, first of all, thank him, but I would love to just pick his brain. And so I emailed his assistant. I'm like, yo, here, and I gave him the synopsis. I'm like, yo, look, here's who I am. I just want to tell you that this is what happened, and Kyle changed my life, and I would love to have him come on the show and have a great conversation for my listeners. Whether you say yes or no, I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. You have no idea. And she goes, Kyle, I'd love to. And I'm like, fuck. Like, oh my gosh.
You're like, now I got to interview him. I got to figure this out.
And here's the thing. I had a feeling. I had this, and mind you, Kyle is the most like energetically aware person you would ever meet. You can feel that dude from a mile away. He can feel everything. His one true north is the present moment. He has no agenda in life. It's just what the present tells him. Like that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I knew if I had any agenda, I would repel him. So I had a few notes like to keep me on pace, but I had a feeling in my gut that either something crazy was going to happen or nothing was going to happen. Yeah. And I was okay with either option. I'm telling you, bro, it was the best conversation I've ever had with any human in the world. And literally everything I couldn't have even imagined what came through of that. Not only was the conversation incredible, not only was Kyle and his assistant both said it was one of the best podcasts he's ever been on. Mind you, Kyle Cease has been interviewed by Ed Milet, Tom Bilyeu, Lewis Howes, all the GOATs.
Yeah.
And he said, mine was one of the best. You want to talk about imposter syndrome screaming from the rooftops, but I'm like, I'm about to cry, like literally listening to this. Cause I'm like, this is my idol telling me all this. Then he wanted my number, wants to stay in contact. Then he invited me to come to his event VIP. Then he's like, I loved what came through me. Can we put this on my YouTube? We want to shovel people to you. And so then they put my video, and he literally spent the entire intro talking about how dope I was to his audience. And I'm like, I couldn't have even dreamt this.
Wow.
But here's the thing. I knew it wouldn't have happened if I went in with like, all right, I got to get him to like me. I got to get him to invite me to his shit. No, I go, what is supposed to be will happen.
Yeah.
And I am just going to be in the moment. And I hardly looked at my notes, and it was incredible. It was fucking incredible. It was actually right at a year ago. I just saw the Facebook time hop. That was the best thing that's ever happened. And the biggest thing with Kyle is, if you had to answer your question, like what's the best concept that came from the show. And it's that it's kind of sums up everything I teach is we have to allow ourselves to feel. That's it. That is it. If we do not allow ourselves to feel, we are going to have to alchemize whatever thing we're going through. If you feel lack, if you do not allow yourself to feel the lack, you are going to have to experience lack out in the real world, lose everything. If you are scared to gain weight, if you don't like actually allow yourself separately to sit and like feel those feelings, you're going to have to actually go through it in real life and gain the weight back, and you're going to have to live your fear. So it kind of goes back to, balancing all of these and holding space. But that was the biggest thing, is like literally the title of the episode is breaking egoic connections, addressing your inner darkness. And what was the last part? Oh, and realizing your worthiness is the name of the episode. So it's like, it gets deep. It gets fucking deep. So
that's awesome. Everybody needs to go check that out. I know I certainly will. Last question that I asked to everybody, being this is the BAMcast, is what are you, Jared Hamilton, going to accomplish by any means necessary?
I have two answers, and they're not probably what you would think is, and I hate this answer, but I feel like it's what should be the answer is the question is, what am I going to accomplish by any means necessary, is what's supposed to happen. I have it. That sounds so stupid. I have a tendency to like, kind of like the Kyle stuff, like we were talking about, is, we almost set our sights too specific and then chase, versus being okay with what's supposed to happen. And my biggest thing is allowing what's supposed to happen, and actually letting go of some of that control. That's my biggest project right now. And I have a hard time with that. I am stereotypically a recovering control freak.
Yeah.
So, cause I find the more that I set, like, I will do this by any means necessary, the universe, God, or whatever is like, that's cute.
Your plan.
That's fucking cute.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. And then you know what I mean? So, but if I had to give like the normal answer of like, what are you going to accomplish is it kind of sounds corny, but like live into my potential. Mm-hmm. It's literally maxing out my potential of what I can do to the fullest it can be becoming that version of myself that I'm supposed to be. So
I love it, man. Well, I think it's kind of a full circle thing with you having the struggles with religion at the very beginning of your life and through those kind of formative years. And then your core answer, the first thing that pops into your head is something that's so faith-based, right? Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I trust that, right? And I think that's a really full circle, kind of beautiful answer to that. So, dude, I absolutely loved this conversation. I know people will feel the same way, and thank you for just blessing me with your brain for an hour and a half. And dude, it's been an absolute joy to just work with you through AR and get to talk to you and become your friend. And I'm very grateful for you. Seriously.
Likewise, man. Likewise. I one of my favorite things whenever. Because like I've enjoyed working with you since day one, but I felt like things really started to shift even more after spending some time with both you and Mike in Naples.
Yeah.
And it was my highlight of the whole week. I really enjoyed getting to like know you guys more than just work. You know what I mean? Here. Like the business dynamic and stuff. So likewise, I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you, man, and I hope to have you on here soon again.
Yeah, dude.
If you made it this far, I just want to express my appreciation and say thank you. I know if you made it this far, you got something extremely valuable out of this episode just listening to Jared talk. And you, just like me, are thinking probably it's no wonder that he's been as successful as he's been inside the industry. If you want to support Jared or find any of his stuff, I've got it all linked down below. And if you want to support me or the show on a deeper level, we've got all that linked below as well. Hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your year. Happy New Year. And let's crush 2024 together. We've got big plans for the podcast. And the only way that you're not going to miss any of those plans or any of the episodes we've got planned for you is by subscribing if you're watching this on YouTube or following the show if you're listening on any type of audio platform. So make sure you do those two things, and I'll see you guys in the next one.